The greatest masters of all time. De Grootmeesters.
Ja, de Grootmeesters. Deze week hebben wij wel een speciaal iemand. En laat ik er niks over gaan vertellen. Laten we gewoon de man zelf aan het woord laten. Tila Rock, a great master, you know, someone who's meant a lot to hip-hop. And you have meant a lot to hip-hop. You were born in September 1961 in the Bronx. What was it like living in the Bronx in that day and era?
Well, actually, I was born in Manhattan, but moved to the Bronx at a very early age. So that experience was great in itself. West side of the Bronx, which would be the side of Kool Herc.
Ah, Kool Herc.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah, we sure do. So, what was hip hop like back in the day? Because most of it happened on the street and in parks.
Yes, you're correct. It was, first of all, it wasn't called hip-hop yet. It was more where you would really find really good hip-hop was actually in the summertime in the parks, which we called park jams.
Yeah, because everyone was outside. There might have been a
Right,
barbecue.
it was free. Everyone came out. Well, let me go back. Let me take that back. Not just the parks. It could be on city streets, on blocks. You know, what we would do would put speakers outside our windows or in the window and play what is known as breakbeat. This is very early on. No mixing, scratching, or anything like that. Just straight breakbeat from the beginning to the end.
So what was it like? Were MCs outside listening to the breakbeats, feeling it, and throwing their hands up like, I can do a trick or two?
Well, yeah, because it was the b-boy era. That's what we called it back then. Break boys and b-boys, and yes, and you had the MCs. And what we would do is we would do something called going off the top of the head. Mm-hmm. Nowadays they call it freestyle.
Yeah.
The original term was going off the top, and we would just make up it wasn't called rapping, called rhyming, and we would make up rhymes on the spot to these beats, to these break beats.
What was that like? It sounds to me like that's a very exciting time in hip hop.
Yes, it was. I mean, it was, put it this way, it was something where you look forward to it. When you would come outside, the people who were into that type of music, that was when we woke up in the morning, we could not wait to see each other so we can do just that, make up rhymes and listen to break beats. It was a way of life almost at a very early age. Mm-hmm. I was actually there, what I call around the birth of hip-hop, or around like 74, 75. I'm not 100% sure. It was right around that time. Of course, everyone knows Muhammad Ali, known for his rhymes, for his fights and intermission. But there was another person who was actually a white person. He was an actor and comedian named Danny Kaye, and he would rhyme a lot. So me listening to him made me want to rhyme.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I can't skip over this. I actually started out as a b-boy. There was a lot of other break dancers around who do not get mentioned as much as they should.
True.
This is right around the time of Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa.
All the people that started it off.
Right. And let me know if I'm getting ahead of myself, because I'm just, my mind is exploding right now with memory.
No problem.
I also was a DJ, and my name was DJ MC Tila Rock.
So you did the turntablism, or more like selector?
Here in New York City, I believe it was other places also, but here in New York, the Bronx in particular, we would buy sweatshirts and put our names on the sweatshirts. And there was two things as a DJ, I was just fascinated with breakbeats. So I actually became a breakbeat collector also. DJ, MC, beat collector, Tila Rock. The breakdancing was short-lived. I didn't do that too much.
Okay. That is stressing for the body.
Yes. I mean, I did some. I was also into kung fu, so that helped.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
The school I attended was right across the street from my house, so that was convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And the location I was in the Bronx was right in the center of where hip-hop began. Names like Cedar Park, 82 Schoolyard, 104. Yes, and I actually, I was solo for a while, and I met another DJ MC, both titles, named Bombay, the amazing Bombay. So now it's me and Bombay, and he had a brother whose name was Dice, Easy Dice, who also was an MC. But me and Bombay would hang out every day after school, and Bombay introduced me to another DJ whose name is Cooley Breeze. Now, we going back now with these colorful names.
Yep.
So it was me, Bombay, Cooley Breeze. One other person who Cooley Breeze knew, whose name was B.O. Zonk, and he was a DJ. So now you have 4 DJs and 2 DJ MCs, and we formed a group and called ourselves the Undefeated 4. That was my first group. Now, this is pre-Cold Crush. This is before Cold Crush Brothers, before Fantastic. I believe around that time, they were the L Brothers, who were Grand Wizard Theodore's brothers, the L Brothers.
Yep.
But we were a local group in the Bronx. We were a local group of a collection of DJs and MCs.
But there was a lot of DJs and MCs coming from the Bronx, of course. Did it help for you to have someone in your house, let's say an older brother named Special K?
No, stop you right there. You mean younger brother.
A younger brother?
I introduced my brother to hip-hop. That Special K is my younger brother.
Okay, that's not what...
I was actually a part of hip-hop. I was just getting to that when I brought up Undefeated. Because I was going to continue on and say the person I mentioned earlier, Easy Dice, who was Bombay's brother.
Yeah.
He would hang around us, and I would bring my younger brother, who was Special K. His name was not Special K yet. His name was KK. And I would bring him around the group. So then the name changed to the Undefeated Force, because there was more of us. Mm-hmm. And there was another one, Whip-a-Whip, not to be confused with Whip-a-Whip from Fantastic. There was another Whip-a-Whip and Bossy Bond. That completed the Undefeated Force.
So actually, we have to thank Special K's turn to hip-hop to you. Oh,
yes. Like I said, he was my younger brother. I used to bring him around, and I would bring him around Undefeated, and he would come to our party, and he became interested, and he started writing rhymes.
Cool how things work out.
Same house. We grew up in the same house, so he would knock on my room door and say, "Listen to this rhyme I wrote," and I would like it or not like it. And I had I was a collector. I had the DJ. I had the DJ equipment. I had the turntables, the break beats, and I would play beats while he would let me hear the rhymes he wrote. So but he was still, I wouldn't say an official member of Undefeated Force, but he hung around us enough.
Okay, and that's where he picked up the game. Now, let's take it a little bit further. You met up with a guy named Rick Rubin.
Yeah, that's down the line. That's 4 or 5 years later.
Exactly. He was because
what I'm telling you about now is 70, 78, 79, 80. When Treacherous 3 was formed and Fearless 4, with Rick Rubin, that was 83, 84.
So how did you meet him?
My brother introduced me to Rick. My brother Special K is the one that introduced me to Rick Rubin.
So Rick Rubin at that time had not yet formed the record label Def Jam, but he was probably still the DJ.
When I was with Def Jam was in its baby stages.
Yeah.
Def Jam was a name, a production company, a imprint. We didn't even have a Def Jam. Actually, come to think about it, Def Jam actually started in the trunk of Jazzy J's car. He would take records around on consignment. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what that means you give the records, and when they sell them, you get a profit.
Yeah.
And And I remember in Rick Rubin's dorm room also. He was still in college. Rick Rubin was still in college when we released It's Yours. He was still a college student.
At that moment in time, was Rick Rubin still DJing for the Beastie Boys?
Beastie Boys, yeah. He was. That's how I met the Beastie Boys. We would actually meet down in Rick Rubin's dorm room. And I remember he had a drum machine which was called a Roland 808. In which we used to produce It's Yours. Beastie Boys, there's one or two, unfortunately, it was so long ago, I cannot remember which one. There's a version of It's Yours called It's Yours Scratch Party Death Mix, where you can hear a crowd in the background.
Yeah.
One or two of the Beastie Boys is in that crowd. They were in the studio with us.
But there's also...
I remember they had... I believe, wow, this was so long ago. I believe the Beastie Boys released a record. I think it was called Cookie Puss.
Yeah, that's when they were still a punk band.
Like that, yeah. I mean, this is very early on. Nicest guys in the world, too. Yeah, so this was a great time for me. And, oh, by the way, you're going to love this. I was actually doing hip-hop for the love of it, for the fun of it, was not really interested in recording a record. I was DJing and MCing on the side. I worked in a pharmacy, Leroy Pharmacy. That was my daytime job. I was still DJing at home, still buying records and break beats. And my brother, Special K, is the one that came to me and said he met someone named Rick Rubin who wanted to record a record. Now, he originally wanted to record a record with Mo D, Cool Mo D, and my brother Special K. I think Without Sunshine. I don't know why. And but Mo D and my brother could not record because they were under contract with Sugar Hill Records at that time, which was a big hip-hop label back then, Sugar Hill Records. I was actually reluctant. I really did not want to record a record. My brother had to talk me into it, but I went down to Rick Rubin's dorm room. I met him. First impression was shock.
Yeah, why was that? Why in shock?
Oh, because, I'm getting a flashback. He looked more like a rocker, like someone into rock and roll. So, that was my first impression. But then conversing with him, nicest guy in the world, and, we clicked. And we decided to record a record, and that was It's Yours. Now, at that time, by the way, I had a DJ already named Louie Lou, who recorded songs with me later on, and which we'll get into. Now, Louie Lou came down to a couple of rehearsals, but it didn't work out with Louie Lou. It's something personal I can't get into. It wasn't with me and him. It was with Louie Lou and someone else who I'm not going to mention. Okay. And Rick Rubin had the idea, look, I have someone that can come in and perform the scratches. It says Jazzy J. Now, I know who Jazzy J was. I was a big fan of his. I said, okay. Now, think about this. This is one of my best friends, Louie Lou, versus Jazzy J. Not in a battle sense, but I took Rick Rubin's advice, and he says, yeah, I think Jazzy J should come in and do the scratches. Me and Jazzy J clicked right away, and he put down some serious... He picked his choice of records to use on It's Yours. The scratch were phenomenal. I loved it. Now, that was supposed to be it. He was just supposed to come in, perform the scratches, and that's it. And me and Rick Rubin thought about it and said, listen, we came up with this idea. Jazzy J performed the scratches. We should remain a team. Now, I felt a little bad because I was supposed to go back to Louie Lou. But with Jazzy J, it worked out perfectly. We got along well. We're both from the Bronx. And when It's Yours first came out, I was still working at Leroy Pharmacy. Now, the record release party for It's Yours was at a club called Danceteria. Have you heard of it before?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Danceteria. And it was a success. That was the first professional party in a club like that with that magnitude. And it was successful. I kept my job. I was still working. And there were two DJs at that time on the radio. DJ Red Alert, who is Jazzy J's cousin, and DJ Tony Humphries. They both played It's Yours. Red Alert played It's Yours on his nighttime master mix show and was getting a lot of requests. Tony Humphries played it in the daytime. Now, it became the #1 requested song. I'm at work one day. I'm in the back of the pharmacy. I'm writing up an order or doing something. I don't know. I turn on the radio, and I hear the #1 requested song of the day, hip-hop song of the day, and I'm thinking they're going to say Run DMC or someone like that. And they said Tila Rock, and my record came on. And you know, I almost fell out of my seat. I jumped when I heard my record for the first time. As soon as I hit my neighborhood, everyone was running up to me. Then the shows started pouring in.
Cool.
The hip-hop clubs at that time were the Roxy. You had Danceteria, of course, Roseland, Latin Quarters. Latin Quarters was a little bit later on. And another club called the Fun House. This record took off. This is unbelievable. You're not going to believe this. You would have had to have been there. But I'm performing on a Friday night at the Roxy and on a Saturday night at the Fun House, and these two clubs are walking distance from each other. And people still came out. It was like half the crowd, a majority of the crowd that was at the Roxy showed up at the Fun House the next day. That's how huge the record was. So, I was performing all over New York and New Jersey and Philadelphia. Never been outside of the state off of It's Yours. Then I took a break. After It's Yours, I just shut down and took a break. And there was a DJ whose name is DJ Holiday, friend of mine. We lived close to each other in the Bronx. And he came to me one day and said he knows about a record company, a record label that's looking for artists. So it interests me. I say, okay. We go down to this record company, and the name of the record company is Sleeping Bag Records. And I met with the president, whose name was Will Sokoloff. Right at that time, they only had one record out, one hip-hop record out, which was called Success is the Word, with Scott LaRock, without KRS-One. It was Scott LaRock. The next release was Mantronic, who had just finished the record called Fresh is the Word. Now, we met. Now, I decided to make a deal with Sleeping Bag Records to put out an EP, 3 songs. I recorded a record called, name was He's Incredible, Breakdown, and Rockin' the Party. Rockin' the Party was all freestyle off the top of the head. So now I had this record with Sleeping Bag Records, which came out. Did not do as good as It's Yours, but did well. I actually teamed up with Mantronic, and we worked on, we recorded a bass machine. Well, actually, it was Breaking Bells, which was actually produced by me and Louie Lou. Mantronic, he came, this was so long ago, he came to one session. I can't remember why he did not come back, but me and Louie Lou wound up producing that record. I wrote the record for Mantronic. Now, that record came out, did very well. We recorded an LP, an album, Lyrical King from the Boogie Down Bronx. Yep. Where once again, me and Louie Lou were sitting at the producer's chair. The majority of that album. Bass Machine, This Beat Kicks, Back to Burn. These were huge records that I did with Mantronic. Because we both, one thing me and Mantronic had in common is my rap style was futuristic, you can say, and so was his production. Like, me and Mantronic was labeled as the artists who were ahead of their time. So that was a perfect marriage with Mantronic. Now, I'm still in the States now, never been overseas. I went to an event, and I met Quincy Jones and his son, QD3. Now, QD3 was a producer, and while he was here in New York, he actually lived with me, and we started working on some music together. Now, he was living in Sweden, so he told me when he goes back to Sweden, he asked me would I be interested in coming out to Sweden to perform. I said, of course. We recorded a record together, and the name of that record was Nitro. Are you familiar with the Sleeping Bag Rat Packs? Yeah, they would put out these albums called the Rat Pack, and on the Rat Pack albums, you will find songs that were not on any of the artists' albums. So we recorded a record, Nitro, and I went out to Sweden, and I actually took members of the New York City Breakers with me. Like Mr. Wave was a very good friend of mine, in which I produced a song for him also. You familiar with that group, New York City Breakers, Mr. Wave?
No.
Yeah, because I'm talking and flowing, but if you have any questions while I'm talking, feel free to ask.
Well, there are two more things that I would like to know, but I'm listening to you, and it's all interesting. So please continue.
Oh, okay. So we left off with QD3. Yeah, so he brought me out to Sweden. Now, I confirmed this with him. I'm actually the first rapper from the States to ever perform in Sweden. So that made me feel really good.
Yeah.
But we recorded the record Nitro. It came out on the Rat Pack album. Did very well. Me, Mantronic, Just Ice, and Joyce Sims, who was she wasn't a rapper. She was a all in all. Mantronic producer also. She did dance music. We went on tour. I went to places like Amsterdam, London, it was about maybe I'd say 2 to 3 week tour overseas. Now all these shows I was doing was on the strength of the Lyrical King album. These are places where It's Yours did not take me. There were places I performed, even in New York. I remember one time I was performing in Philadelphia with, it was a show with me, DJ Cash Money and Marvelous, back then Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff. That's when he was just a rapper. He hadn't done any movies. And I remember, and Kumo D. Now I'm performing. I perform It's Yours. I get a nice response. They loved it. But when I performed Back to Burn, they went crazy.
Yeah, well, it's a good record, so they should.
Yeah, but that was just I was a little taken by that, like the response. I mean, they really went crazy when I performed Back to Burn. Yeah, so I did those tours, but they did not compare when I went overseas. It was just amazing. Fast forward, I took a long break, and we might be going too far now, but I had the opportunity to perform in Brazil.
Yeah, that was 2008, right?
That was yes. I was about to say that. That was a few years ago. That's why I said fast forward.
Yeah, that's pretty fast forward.
Yeah, because there's not too much to really talk about before that.
Well, there is, of course, something that happened in front of your brother's house in the Bronx in 1994.
Oh, that was that was an injury. I had an injury. We don't know. See, that's why it's difficult to talk about that because no one still knows what happened. I know this was, wow, that was way back. That was 1995.
Yeah.
So if you do the math,
that's like 20 years ago.
Wow, 20 years ago. Yeah, 1995. Because we don't know. I was on my way to the studio. This is what we know. And I was going to meet my friend to go to the studio. And this is what was said. Some kind of fight broke out or something. I had records in my hand, and I tried to break up the fight and wind up getting hit. So it's like there's no real story about it. So, but I was how could I put it?
So
out of commission.
It is unknown why the fight was there in the first place.
Right. That's why it's confusing. That's why sometimes when I talk about it, it's hard to talk about it because there's no real information. You know what I mean? It's like no one up to today's date. Because it was late at night. There was no witnesses. Maybe one witness, and that's the one that said that there was a fight that broke out, and I tried to break up. When I went to break up the fight, the person who was about to get hit, I got hit instead. That's actually going to be in the movie also. But that actually, you know what? It's interesting because that story had gotten, I didn't even realize it had gotten a lot of publicity, a lot of attention. I think it may have reached out where you are.
Yeah, definitely has.
Yeah, it was covered from the Daily News, which is a big newspaper here in New York, CNN, Vibe, Billboard, a lot of coverage. Which, it wasn't just about that. It was like during interviews. that would come up, and sometimes it will be that. So, I mean, I felt like, wow, I'm getting a whole lot of attention. Yeah, but that was like, I wish I could say more, but it's just that there's not too much information surrounding that. One thing for sure, I mean, I was shown a massive amount of love behind that. I mean, I was getting mail and contacts from people around the world, and there were people actually flying in to see me. So that was a good feeling. But at the same time, that's just a part of my life that I just wish would have never happened. But the saying is like, you can't do anything about it. It's like fate.
No, exactly. And, at the end of it, it made you who you are today. So can it really be bad? Right.
And it's like, I mean, it's just like I said, I have a permanent place in the music world from the 80s. For my contribution from It's Yours to the Lyrical King to On the Warpath, which was the second album, I have a permanent place. I mean, music in general. There are people I meet up to today's date who are either hip-hop artists, R&B singers, pop singers. When I meet them, I'm glad to meet them. In my mind, I'm like, wow. And sometimes before I can get 4 words out, that person knows all about me. Wow, Tila Rock, I'm so glad to meet you. I used to listen to your music all the time. And I do what's called a little test. Because sometimes when someone says to me, oh, I'm such a fan of yours, I listen to your music all the time, I listen to what records they say. They'll say for 3 records. But there are some people, like, let me give you an example. You familiar with the actor Mike Epps?
No.
He did, you know who Ice Cube is? Ice Cube?
Yep.
Like his movies, like Friday After Next. Did y'all get those movies out there?
Yep.
Well, his cousin, Day Day.
Yes.
In the movies Friday, that's Mike Epps.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why I brought him up, because I met him, I think it was at a Def Jam event. And I say to him, wow, hey, how you doing? But I was about to congratulate him on his work, and he starts saying lyrics to my songs and lyrics to album cuts. So right there told me, oh, so this guy really does listen to Tila Rock. He doesn't just say the songs, everyone knows. So, that's a good feeling also. The reason why I brought up Brazil is because I actually recorded 2 songs with a DJ producer I met while I was in Brazil a few years ago. That's going to come out. And also with an artist I met in Japan a few years ago. You know what the artist's name is that I met in Japan? The artist that I met, the rapper I met while I was in Brazil, in Japan. As a matter of fact, I was in Tokyo. And the guy's name is Zen LaRock. Yeah, so that's going to be. And yeah, and I'm also recording for my movie soundtrack. I'm also going to record songs with both my brothers. I have a younger brother also named Tone. I'm recording songs with him and my brother Special K.
So there's a lot of stuff still coming from Tila Rock and the family.
Oh, yes. And there's a lot of unreleased material I have. And, of course, there's going to be some remixes. I did a remix for Runaway, remix for Nitro that I did with QD3. And I actually just got back in touch with Mantronic.
Wow. So when are we going to be expecting any of this work?
Oh, some of it you're gonna get this year. Yeah, because I want to make sure everything is right. No room for error. Everything I don't want to rush anything. Things have to be, that I'm really totally satisfied with.
Are there other projects on the move right now?
Yeah, there are, but that I can't really talk about right now until they're solidified.
Oh, okay. Well, do keep us posted. We'll be looking forward to any new products that are coming up. Thank you for having this conversation, Tila Rock.